Karl Popper, 1902 to 1994, established himself as a vicious defender of the principles of liberal democracy, a political philosophy that has, more or less, taken the Western world by storm. Despite all their differences, liberal democracy is still a political philosophy strongly defended by Republicans and Democrats alike. After all, what is not to like about a political system that sells itself as one led by the people? Any reasonable individual could see the validity of giving significant political power to the people. There is little to indicate Popper was being dishonest with some of the points he made in an effort to solidify liberal democracy as the supreme political order in the West, but it does appear that he was a bit naive. Popper once said, "It is wrong to ask who will rule. The ability to vote a bad government out of office is enough. That is democracy." Though his words have a flattering ring to them, Popper somehow neglected to address the cruel reality that the populace is much more efficient in voting a bad government into office than they are out of office. One need only conduct a cursory investigation into the history of American politics to find that, the majority of the time, the vast majority of the time, one side of the political aisle is always pissed at the administration in power. That is to say, 49% of the population is pouting, while the other 51% of the population is enjoying the turnabout. I understand that it is not a 50-50 split in Republican-Democrat representation in this country, but the analogy still proves efficient. Thomas Jefferson had it right when he said, "A democracy is nothing more than mob rule, where 51% of the people may take away the rights of the other 49. If a time machine were available, one could blast to the past and survey the general population to see what they thought about their government. In the majority of cases, people will be disappointed. Richard Nixon is one such exception, who won 49 states in 1972, which speaks to the colossal ignorance so prevalent in the average American. How could this be? If the people are the ones voting in the politicians who run the government, how can so many people be upset and discontented with their national leadership? Could it be that democracy is not a unifying political system?" Popper also had this to say, "The defense of democracy must consist in making anti-democratic experiences too costly for those who try them, much more costly than a democratic compromise." Again, it is easy to see how Popper's words make sense for the majority of people who are under the blind confidence of an inherently flawed system. But for those of us who are plagued by their inner critic, it is easy to see how, paradoxically, Popper's sentiment has the bitter taste of authoritarianism in it. By just switching up a few words, it is not difficult to imagine Stalin or Hitler issuing the same statement. The defense of communism must consist in making anti-communist experiences too costly for those who try them, much more costly than a communist compromise. Even if we grant that democracy is a functional political philosophy, its founding, in America, betrays its own virtue. Democracy in the United States was not democratically decided on by the people of the United States. It was a political system installed by a few men at the time, i.e., anti-democratic. In other words, democracy was founded in this country by the very elite system it was attempting to dismantle. Consider these biting words from our second president, John Adams. "I do not say that democracy has been more pernicious on the whole and in the long run than monarchy or aristocracy. Democracy has never been and never can be so durable as aristocracy or monarchy. But while it lasts, it is more bloody than either. Remember, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide. It is in vain to say that democracy is less vain, less proud, less selfish, less ambitious, or less avaricious than aristocracy or monarchy. It is not true, in fact, and nowhere appears in history. Those passions are the same in all men, under all forms of simple government, and when unchecked, produce the same effects of fraud, violence, and cruelty. When clear prospects are open before vanity, pride, avarice, or ambition, for their easy gratification, it is hard for the most considerate philosophers and the most conscientious moralists to resist the temptation. Individuals have conquered themselves. Nations and large body of men never. This does not even address the quality of the populace. Those who advocate for democracy demand their heart surgeon have a medical degree, while having no problem with an uneducated populace being in charge of who decides to run the country. This quickly devolves into mob rule, something this country has hosted on not so few occasions. Plato uttered this same idea over 2,000 years ago. Dictatorship naturally arises out of democracy, and the most aggravated form of tyranny and slavery out of the most extreme liberty. The most cynical part of an ignorant populace is that it can be easily manipulated. Political ads, banal speeches, and 80s rock songs, for example, are enough to get the average American pumped for a given candidate, despite the fact that a lot of those 80s rock songs are actually anti-USA, such as Springsteen's Born in the USA, very much not in favor of America, but whatever. All of which exists outside our policy. The crux of the degeneracy of democracy is not that some people are not doing enough, it is that the wrong people are doing too much. It is the voter who is to blame for this broken system. It is a person's honest belief that the candidate they vote for will be better for this country than any other. The heartbreaking reality is that though the voter is responsible for putting a given politician in office, it is the same voter who is eternally condemning the very political structure they are perpetuating. Talk about shooting yourself in the foot. Meanwhile, all these elected officials, politicians, etc., do little more than reinforce the superficial fantasies of the populace, giving vacuous speeches and deploying ridiculous ads, thus earning them another term in office, and so on ad infinitum. Bullshit, that's what it is.